councillors. Thank you, please. Can the mates be brought in, please? Thank you. Item 1. I've received the following apologies from Councillor Williams and Councillor Guthrie. Are there any further apologies? None. Thank you. We move on to Councillor 2.
Excuse me.
Sorry, Councillor
Brown.
John Brown. Microphone.
Councillor John Brown.
Thank you. Item 2. Minutes of the council. Do members have any issues of accuracy with the minutes of the meeting of the 2nd of March 2015?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Yeah, just on apologies, I did send my apologies for the meeting. It's not reflected there, it's just, I think Dale was not present, but I did submit my apologies.
Thank you. Noted. Is it the way the meeting they are accepted? Thank you. Item 3, correspondence from the previous meetings. There's no correspondence. Move on to item 4. Code of conduct, declarations of interest. Do members have any interest that they wish to declare? None. We move on to item 5, Civic Mayor's announcements. We'll move on to leaders' announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My announcements were circulated on Friday, Mr. Mayor, so I don't intend to read them out. Obviously, I will take questions. Thank you.
Okay. Do members have any questions for the leader on his announcement, please? Yes, Councillor Bennett.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on the living wage, can just ask the leader if he and his group are so supportive of the living wage, can he explain why Councillor Bolden and Councillor Higgins voted against it at a recent motion at the Labour Party meeting, which asked this council to introduce it? My sources in the Labour group have told me that he actually argued against it.
I don't recollect that, Mr. Mayor.
No. Incorrect.
I suggest he gets new sources.
HP.
Incorrect there, Councillor Bennett.
I'm sorry?
I'm advised what your comment is incorrect.
Well, that's their opinion, Mr. Mayor.
Next question, please, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like just to ask for an official apology from the leader of the council that stated in the local newspapers that I voted against living wage, which is not true.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, that's not part of my announcement.
Right. Move on to the next item.
It is.
All right. Okay.
Can I just ask the leader, if that's not part of his announcements, why there's something there saying living wage and there's a commitment to bring in the living wage for employees by April 2016?
It's exactly what it says, Mr. Mayor. What Councillor Cleaner was indicating that I said in an article in the paper that he voted against. I have not said anything in my announcements about Councillor voting against any living wage.
Next question. Councillor Shep.
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to be contrary, but official statement has been made in a newspaper, in the local newspapers, and I expect an apology. Now, if the leader doesn't have the courage and courtesy to do that, then I will have to take the other steps to remedy this. Thank you.
I suggest you take the other steps, Mr. Mayor.
Next question. Yes, we'll go back to civic affairs announcements. I attended 22 events during March, the following 9 are most notable. On the 9th of March, Commonwealth Day, I attended the town hall for the flying of the flag and carried out a single commemorative act marking the centenary of World War I. The second appointment was on the 11th of March. I attended an excellent evening in Achievement Awards, the Warrington Borough Council Bright Futures volunteers at the Orchid Jubilee Hub, with Stephen Reddy in attendance. The third appointment was on the 15th of March. I led the St Patrick's Day parade that included the laying of the wreath at the Jonathan Wallington Parry Bridge Street Memorial Site. It was well attended by the Irish community, a good number of councillors, Warrington residents and some Portuguese visitors were there, who were there when the bombing occurred 22 years ago. Item 4, on the 18th of March, I attended a BEM investiture at Tatton Hall, Tatton Park, to see a most remarkable lady by the name of Mrs. Maureen Georgina Hyam of Bradley Common, Stay the Mountain View, awarded the BEM for services to children's community magic column in the form of her extensive community work as founder of Stay and Play Group Warrington Plus. The raising of continuity of funds for the needs of her community. She's a hard-working lady, and at some point I'm going to invite her to the Mayor's Parlour to give her and her family some recognition. And perhaps the councillors who cover that area could come along on that occasion. The fifth appointment, on the 20th of March, I attended the Bridge Street Memorial Service by the Reverend Stephen Kingswell, for the 22nd anniversary of the IRA bombing. There were councillors present, but I feel that more could make the effort to attend in future years, myself included, because I'm going to try to make it as often as I can in future years. Most of us would agree that this is an event that must never be forgotten. The sixth appointment, 24th of March, I attended Peter Mercer's leaving event. He was honored to be present on Peter's retirement day. He made good things happen at St Golden Gates Housing for many years that benefits the residents of their organisation. Item 7, 24th of March, I attended a fantastic event at the Far Hall to see a remarkable primary school arts event by children from St Bridget's School, Cobb Infant School, Statham School, St Matthew's School, Blaisbury School, Thelwall Infants and Junior School, St Philip's School, Bradford Hall Hayes School, Raymond Bank School. Another great success for Granite Town for once again organised such a wonderful school event. Again, it would be nice to see more councils present for future events in support of the local schools. That would be me included. Item 8, on the 18th of March, I attended the Comedius Regius event at the Power Hall as part of the Burgermeister of Hilden's visit to Warrington. It was well attended, involving children in care, providing a fantastic continuity of excellent musicians and singers from St Catherine's Music Group, University Academy, Orford Hub, Priestley College, Warrington Collegiate and others, plus a fantastic projection of the history of Hilden and Warrington on the external frontage of the Park Hall. It was something to be seen, that was. And the last point of note, on the 26th of March, I attended the 75th Engineers Regiment barbecue at Peninsula Fabrics to raise funds for children in care, a very worthy cause. Right, we'll move on to the next item. Item 7. Item 7.1, policy statement. Report of the Executive Board proposed by Councillor Patel. Councillor Patel.
Thank you. Members, each year we're required to adopt the Council Pay Policy Statement. This is substantially the same policy statement that we've adopted year on year for the last few years. It's just been updated with more, figures of the staff that we employ and the salaries that are right, the basic pay. So it's required to
Could Councillor Hannon second that?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I should second you.
Thank you. Councillor Bennett?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. On the pay policy statement, the average working wage according to pay scale is for males 31,639,000 and for females 24,942. The average house price is now 210,000. As a Labour controlled council, we still haven't implemented the living wage, despite the untruths told to the press by the leader and Councillor Higgins, for which I have not had an apology. But I'll move on. Other Labour councils have already implemented the living wage on a cost-neutral basis by reducing the higher paid staff rate on salaries over £30,000 to £40,000. Just have a look at the lowest rate in your books, just over £13,000, and then look at the top rate. Despite the ratio, do you really think that's fair? The council has also only agreed a pay structure for all NJC posts that have been job evaluated under the NJC scheme. Any post evaluated outside of this scheme that results in a different grade being attached to the post is not agreed. Labour's record on pay and conditions in this council is abysmal. We all remember Councillor Patel ignoring unions and protests outside when he led a vote to increase pay for the highest paid officers in this council. His policy was so bad that many Labour councillors actually took a principled stand and boycotted the meeting in disgust, while the leadership whipped their councillors into backing pay hikes. I won't be supporting this report, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Any other members wish to speak? Councillor?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. A question to the executive member. The ambition, and we all share it, is to move to the living wage. Now, the living wage, I think, for an average working week is somewhat over £15,000 a year. Our grades 1 and 2 are less than that. Has the executive member worked out how implementing the living wage will impact on other grades of the structure?
Response, please. Councillor Patel.
Can I take all the questions first and I'll respond?
Any other question? No. Okay, Councillor Patel.
I think at the last meeting when we discussed the budget, it was quite clear from Councillor Bowden that a lot of work still needs to be done, but we've given ourselves 12 months to work out logistics of implementing the living wage and also to conduct fair consultation with relevant stakeholders, that includes the unions. Then in some local authorities they've given a supplement on top of their salaries without actually breaking scale, but to give them supplement to take the work to the living wage. And in other areas they've abandoned the first two grades. I'm leaving that up to Councillor Bowden and the finance team to work out which is the best way to go forward in terms of finding the finances. And then myself and Mike, I suppose, Councillor Hannah will lead with regards to negotiation, consultation with relevant stakeholders like the unions and like the other staff forums that we have in place. And in response to Councillor Bennett's comments, I know his concerns.
Any other question? Any other statements? Put it to the vote. All those in favour? Any against?
Yes, I've not got a card, Mr Mayor. Sorry about that.
Any abstentions?
Not the only thing you're lacking.
Thank you for that comment. At least I'm watching the Labour group.
There's no questions from members of the public, so we'll move on to item 9. Questions from members of the council. There's 22 questions been received. Changes to the constitution.
Point of order, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
as you will see from the council summary, one of my questions I submitted has been struck off the agenda. This is not the first time that it's happened, and the key point is that this decision, I was not told of this decision until after the council summons had been sent out. So I think further explanation regarding the actions of the council solicitor and the explanation as to why I believe that proper procedure was not followed. I should have been able to resubmit or reword my question.
I'm advised you've had a written explanation.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, if you say so.
So I'll start again on that subject. So the 22 questions we received. Change to the Constitution meant that all questions be taken as read as a limit and the time limit of 30 minutes will be set aside for deemed questions. Any questions put to the meeting but not receiving an answer at the meeting will receive a written response. The first 16 questions are contained within the summons, the remaining 6 are on the letter issued to you. A full schedule of the questions is provided this evening. Please note that there has been a typographical error on the summons, and question 16 is from Councillor Higgins rather than Councillor Bennett as stated.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to formally move that in the interest of democracy and openness, that we extend the time allowed for questions this evening and allow at least 1 hour rather than 30 minutes, so that members have the opportunity to put their questions to the administration and get answers. I am formally putting this as a motion to the council, and I request that we take a vote on it, because this administration promised an open and transparent council. I am also calling on the leader to support me in this and join me in requesting the extra time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Axel seconds. Point 40 of the Council's Constitution provides for suspension of the Council's standing orders. There is a requirement to have 1/3 of the members of the Council present to move it without notice, which we have this evening. Councillor, are you proposing the motion? Do we have a seconder? We have. Can I please put the motion to the meeting?
Can I propose a motion, an amendment to that motion?
No, that's not permissible.
Yeah.
Can I vote please on the motion? I'll say on the question.
So we've all said no.
Those in favour?
Council
For suspension? Suspend all letter orders.
Those against?
Those against? Right, any abstentions? One abstention. No. One abstention.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to propose the motion that all questions are taken as read and that each and every one of them receive a written answer, rather than some of them will receive a verbal answer and that some of them will receive a written answer. And I ask that in the interests of equality for all of those people who have asked questions, and I would seek the support of this chamber for that motion. I do have a seconder to my motion, Councillor Woodgett.
Seconded. Thank you. All those in favour, please. Those against, please. Any abstentions, please? No abstentions. So it's defeated. I'll go back to question number 1. From council vote to council vote, executive member of corporate resources and assignment. To ask the executive member of the corporate resources and assignment to outline the investment that this administration has successfully delivered in the villages of Culture, Blake and Croft since 2011. Council vote, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Bowden. Over the last 4 years of this administration, and also projected forward the rest of the 3-year capital programme, the total investment in Culture, Blake and Croft amounts to some £3.7 million. Specific areas of investment include Shore Street car park and recreational facilities, which I think has been a significant investment in that ward, particularly in relation to the new church side of Culture. Obviously, Culture has benefited significantly from the investment on the streetlight programme, the share of massive investment on the administration on streetlights. Particularly on highways as well. Again, Culture, I think, has been at the front of the investment by this administration in addressing some non-standing highways and pavement issues. Hurst Lane in Glasbury, for example, the A574, Warrington Road, but also across other parts of Culture. Also work with partners, delivering affordable housing in Meadbrow and Newchurch. Work with St Lewis's and addressing long-standing car parking issues, but also looking at new ways in which we can work with partners to bring additional funding into the ward. I think I was to commend Councillor Vogan and his colleagues in terms of the work they've done to bring those works to the attention of the council and how they've made the case for those within the capital programme. But I think that's a good model of the work this administration has done across the whole of the borough.
Councillor Bowe, do you have a supplementary?
I do, Mr. Mayor. I'm very grateful to my colleague for his answer. In light of the investment that he's just outlined to us, will you agree with me that recent comments by Conservative parish councillors that, and I quote, "There is no investment in these villages," shows us once and for all that the Conservative Party in Culture have not only reached the bottom of the barrel, they're still scraping.
Rather specific supplementary. I'll stick with the facts if you don't mind, Councillor Vogt. In relation to that investment, Culture Glasbury and Croft has seen perhaps more shared investment over the last 4 years, certainly relative to some of the other wards in Warrington. But I think that's probably a measure of addressing the lack of funding under the previous administration to tackle long-standing problems in those villages, particularly in terms of the rural setting. So I think basically the facts speak for themselves.
Thank you. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I realise you're not going to get to question 22, and I will get an answer in writing, but since it's so closely related to the spending in the north of town, I would be glad if people were here in Paris.
We answer question 2. Councillor Marr. Take as read. Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you are aware, the council has been approached by on-site youth developments to work in partnerships with Warrington Youth Club and members of the local business community to create a new on-site youth zone in the town centre which will provide activities for young people. Warrington Borough Council is committed to supporting the young people of our town, helping them to take part in positive activities and develop positive outcomes. I will give you some background on the on-site youth zones. They are modelled on the very successful Bolton Mountain Girls Clubs which has been up and running for 30 years. There are 6 youth zones in the northwest at Wigan, Bolton, Carlisle, Blackburn, Manchester and Oldham, and there are plans to open a youth zone in Wolverhampton, Preston and Wirral. They provide somewhere to go, something to do and someone to talk to. Being part of the on-site network across the northwest brings a wide range of benefits, including operational support, funding and national recognition. The former Mr. Smith's building, which is centrally located, has been identified by on-site, and the building will be purchased by a benefactor and placed on a peppercorn rent to Warrington Youth Club. Warrington Youth Zone will be owned and operated by a charity formed out of the existing Warrington Youth Club, providing wider opportunities for young people to access universal, positive leisure activities in a managed setting. Local authorities are criticised for reducing this type of provision, and this is what young people tell us they want. Our youth service focuses on protecting our most vulnerable young people and includes specialist education and safeguarding activities. They work with 20%, which is 3,400 young people in Warrington, not 11,000 young people, as Councillor Bennett said at the last council meeting. He was getting confused about the number of contacts the youth service have with the 3,400 young people. In this way, the youth zone will complement the work of the existing targeted youth service, not replace it. A youth zone will offer open access to all young people aged 8 to 18, 7 days a week, with a £5 membership for the year and 50p per visit. The £3 million capital investment from the council will unlock a further £2.5 million investment from the private sector, and this will be followed by ongoing revenue funding from the charitable and private sector, covering future running costs. In other local authorities, they contribute 350 to 400k per annum towards revenue costs, but this council has made it quite clear that we will not be funding revenue support for the building and youth zone activities. It is anticipated that the Warrington Youth Zone will cost approximately £1.25 million to operate each year. This will be funded from charitable and private sector funding. On-site youth zones are large-scale, multi-activity facilities. Each has a wide range of sporting and artistic activity spaces, including a multi-use outdoor pitch, a forecourt indoor sports hall, a climbing wall, a dance and performing arts studio, a martial arts boxing gym, a fully equipped fitness suite, a music room, film and multimedia suite, arts, crafts and fashion areas, a girls' room, an enterprise and employability room, together with cafe facilities and a host of other activities that can respond to young people's changing needs.
Make sure the font is turned off.
I've been interrupted. Based on evidence from youth zones operating elsewhere, it is anticipated that Warrington Youth Zone has the potential for wide-ranging benefits for young people, their families and local communities. I'm sure councils will agree that benefits to young people in Warrington is to be supported. Youth zones are popular with young people in Warrington. We have 28,000 young people in that age range, and the youth zone aims to establish a membership of 3,000 by the end of the year. Warrington Borough Council will ensure it has a strong link to the development and governance of the proposed youth zone to ensure the needs of young people are identified and met, and that high-quality partnerships are delivered. The consultation was undertaken in October-November with young people, key partner agencies, stakeholders, and contrary to Councillor Bennett's remarks, again at last council, this was a thorough and meaningful consultation. Nearly 2,000 young people responding, 64.2% feel that there are not enough things for young people to do, and nearly 90% felt that young people would access the youth zone. Yeah, I will indeed. And just contrary to Councillor Bennett, sorry to pick on your comments, that this is a vanity project for me. but it is not. It's a commitment to the young people of Warrington.
Thank you. Councillor Marr, do you have a supplementary question? No, thank you. Move on to item 3, question 3. From Councillor McLaughlin to Councillor Hitta Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Scotland. Quite a good question given what I've been reading in the papers today about what's happening in America with regard to laws being passed in the state of Indiana. But here in Warrington, your question relates to the LGBT community in Warrington, the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community. The council provides a wide range of support services and commercial activities to the LGBT community in Warrington. These include the fact that we have support the LGBT group here. This group comprises of volunteers with the aim of providing support across the Warrington area for the lesbian, gay, bisexual and trans community. The Community Enablement Officer in the Family Wellbeing Directorate provides weekly support to that group as well. In terms of financial support, the council has given financial support in the years 2012 and 2013, and last year we also gave financial support in the form of a grant for the Warrington Pride event, which was really, really well attended. And in addition, that Pride event also attracted £3,000 support from the Town Centre grant scheme. We also support the LGBT young people, and that's provided through the youth service. This includes GLIS, the organisation GLIS, some of you may know it, but it stands for the Gay Lesbian Youth Support Service. It has direct liaison with schools and individual pupils. The council also promotes fostering and adoption of the LGBT community. So again, there's a lot of misinformation out there about that community being able to take part in fostering and adoption, just like any other members of our community. Warrington LGBT community are members of the Hate Crime and Incidents Partnership. Again, this is led and supported by the council and have been involved in benefiting from the following activities. 17 schools have been awarded WISE accreditation for their work to combat hate crime and bullying. The Warrington Disability Partnership trustee, Adrian Derbyshire, has been touring schools to promote hate crime and equality awareness and positive thinking. And so far spoken to some 25,000 school children. And the partnership has had stalls at Pride and other public occasions, and has also held events as part of the Disability Awareness Week. And members of the Warrington LGBT community have given presentation at both events held so far. There is also regular sharing where the Warrington LGBT community representatives are encouraged to raise the matters with police and other agencies. In terms of sexual health, Public Health has commissioned a report by Liverpool John Moores University on sexual health services for the LGBT community in 2014. And then undertook a survey at Pride 2014. The Better Prevention Partnership Group brings partners together to implement this work. And the Terence Higgins Trust has been commissioned to provide a HIV testing service for two groups, gay men and the BME communities, and also to increase the engagement with the LGBT community. The worker employed is based at the Gateway. However, the research found that the LGBT community want health service to be as integrated as possible, so most services are delivered through the main contract with Bridgewater Health Trust. Other priorities emerging from research include more sexual health education for school children and more effectively promoting health messages via local meeting places and social media. Finally, in terms of local perspective, members of the Warrington LGBT community are also members of two subgroups of the Mental Health Partnership Board. These are the social inclusion and the promotion and prevention groups. So lots of work is going on in terms of supporting the LGBT community. There are some issues where we still need to do more, and these are more issues that I suppose need to be passed back to our colleagues in Westminster. As some of you know, tribunal fees and employment tribunal fees have been introduced, and at the moment any member of the LGBT community or any member of the public facing discrimination, if they want to take a claim to a tribunal, they now have to pay a £250 fee just to lodge the claim, and then £950 to actually have a hearing. So for a lot of people facing discrimination, on the one hand we are supporting and empowering our communities, but there is a significant barrier for them to get justice as well. And that's something that we, on a personal level, I want to engage with our MPs and whoever might win the election after May the 7th to try and tackle that, because the figures show that catered going to travel has plummeted since those fees have been introduced. So in that respect, there's a real issue about access to justice. The other issue that I want to press as well is the fact that I think we should adopt what President Obama has done in America, which is actually appoint someone to be a special envoy for the LGBT community. The Labour Party has nominated Lord Cashman to be the special envoy.
Can we just halt there, please? You make a point. Make a point, absolutely. Councillor McLaughlin, do you have a supplementary? No supplementary. Move on to item question 4. Councillor Price to Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Price, for this question. Mr. Mayor, whilst we welcome the investment in the New Jersey Gateway Bridge and its associated road improvements, we remain firmly opposed to the imposition of tolls for Warrington residents who will use both the Jersey Gateway and Silver Jubilee bridges. Indeed, we passed a motion at full council last year in March outlining our concerns. Also, late last year, Mr. Mayor, in support of the campaign led by Nick Bent, the Labour Party parliamentary candidate for Warrington South, who wants tolls taken off both bridges for Warrington residents, I actually wrote to businesses and organisations in Warrington asking them to sign up and support Nick's campaign. I had a tremendous response from organisations in Warrington supporting this campaign, like the Chamber of Commerce, University of Chester, Holton, Warrington NH Trust, all adding their name to the petition. These and more than 250 organisations have backed Nick Bent's campaign to remove the toll for Warrington residents. Indeed, Nick has also received more than 560 signatures on his online petition. Last week, we've had further excellent news where 2 parish councils have also joined the campaign, namely Faith and whose parishioners will probably be most affected by the imposition of these tolls. Mr. Mayor, we are not asking for anything outrageous here. Indeed, Mr. Osborne announced last July that he will provide additional funding which will ensure free trips across the 2 bridges for Holton residents, and his government has also taken tolls off other bridges in the country, so why not Warrington? Mr. Mayor, in Warrington it's our communities and businesses who will be affected the most if traffic diverts through Warrington instead of paying the tolls. I can assure colleagues in this chamber we will be supporting Nick Bent's campaign to remove the tolls from these bridges and lobbying vigorously whatever government gets in after the general election will make. This is an excellent campaign, one we are determined to win, and I am convinced we will eventually get these tolls removed for our citizens. There is also a further motion on this full council agenda tonight with regards to the Jersey Gateway and Silver Jubilee bridges, which I urge everyone to support. We do understand the anxieties of our communities, but my outline of what we've done, I think this outlines that we are doing everything we can to persuade the coalition government to properly fund these bridges and take the tolls off these bridges for the residents of Warrington. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Price, do you have a supplementary?
No supplementary, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Move on to question 5 from Councillor Parry, Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Parry, for this question. Mr. Mayor, there is indeed great concern within the sub-region with regards to the amount of infrastructure funding we get here in the North West compared to London. Figures derived from a research report from the IPPR, which is Institute for Public Policy Research, show Londoners receive £2,496 more per head of population than those here in the North West. That's something like 20 times more per head of population, Mr. Mayor. What is perverse, in my opinion, and quite deliberate about the North West figures, which most people don't understand, I think, is that the North West spend per head of population of £1,248. Over half of that total is down to decommissioning at Sellafield. So what this government does, it adds the decommission element of Sellafield in with the infrastructure money, and that's the total they say we have in the North West. Now I accept that decommissioning Sellafield is necessary, but it's hardly what you would call infrastructure improvement, and I just think that it shows how this government treats the residents of the North West. Taking away the cost of decommissioning would reduce our spend here in the North West per head of population to £599, not the 1,248 that this government suggests we do have. Mr Mayor, that's compared to £5,203 per head in London. That is incredibly £4,604 more is spent per head of population in London than here in the North West. We again get Mr Osborne announcing that the so-called Northern Powerhouse, which as far as I'm concerned is patronising the seats because their policies have deliberately battered the north of England. For example, Mr Mayor, the north has taken 75% bigger council cuts than the south. Tax credits have been slashed here in the North West more than any other region, and 25 times more money is spent on transport in London. These facts are echoed by Northern Council leaders regularly when I meet them in the region, and we are concerned that Mr Osborne is simply trying to con voters in marginal seats into believing that the Tories finally care about a region like the North West, one that they have enjoyed decimating for so long. Mr Mayor, I believe this is all smoke and mirrors. After all, the North was a powerhouse when we made goods in our factories and exported them to our docks, and we need to get back to this. We need to start to address our economy's over-reliance on London's financial sector. We need to devolve power away from Whitehall and Westminster and create full-time skilled jobs here in Warrington and the North West. We should be masters of our own destiny with proper fiscal devolution, for I believe the time has long gone where we can rely on government in London to fund us properly. Infrastructure funding included.
Yeah. Councillor Parish, do you have a supplementary, please?
Yes, Mr Mayor. I'm grateful to the leader for that. Obviously, the cost of 2 underground railway lines in London is the equivalent of HS2. I don't know, I've had several conversations with the leader about the possibility of a high-level bridge and whether the funding for that is guaranteed. I just wonder if the leader is aware that in London, between the government and the mayor, they're putting in £60 million to building a garden bridge, pedestrians across the Thames. Total cost of £175 million. I just wondered how that was worth looking at in relation to our need for a proper bridge that actually does something.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I was aware of those figures and facts that Councillor Parish has just outlined. Indeed, as my figures outline, the amount of funding that's spent in London per head of population is outrageous compared to us here in the North West. As far as the funding of the high-level bridge is concerned, the funding is not in place yet. There's been a lot of mischief making in the press by certain individuals who are trying to get political gain. However, we're working hard, and if ever funding is in place, Mr Mayor, it will be this council and the lobbying we are doing that will be beneficial for the residents of Warrington, because it's our plan, it's our ideas, we cost it, and we're hoping to get funding from this government in the future. Any government has to make Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Leader. Move on to item 6, question 6. Councillor Rashid to Councillor Hammond.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Rashid. This administration, considered carefully the proposal to establish a not-for-profit leisure trust and took the decision to ensure a truly innovative approach will be taken and set up Livewire Neighbourhood and Wellbeing Community Invest Company, not only to deliver leisure services but also lifestyle, wellbeing, libraries and learning services by integrating and co-locating services in 15 neighbourhoods and sites across the town. This approach has been recognised nationally as groundbreaking, and Warrington is now being used as an example for other authorities. The benefits for Warrington has been significant. 10,000 new members now using our facilities. 3,000 additional users of wellbeing and lifestyles across the borough. 3,200 residents quitting smoking through Livewire programmes over the last 3 years. 3.5 million residents using Livewire facilities, and library usage in hub sites up by 245%. The above success has been delivered and reduced cost to the council for commission services and the increased investment by Livewire in the following facilities and services. Refurbishment changing facilities including sauna and steam room at Broomfields Leisure Centre. Investment in tennis courts and indoor bowling at Birchwood. improved cricket facilities at Broomfields, improvements to Culture Library, increased numbers of PCs in Orford and Central Library, 13,000 improvement to Woolston Hub for the installation of electronic hoists to enable disabled residents with complex needs to access swimming, pool facilities, specialist equipment and teaching staff. Improved air conditioning and sauna steam at Woolston, introduced new sports and PE services working in 56 schools across the borough. Introduced community cancer information service for specialist nursing staff in Orford. Improved and increased fitness machines and equipment across existing sites. New 250k community sports activity programme in Busey and Dallen. Going forward, exciting projects and planned £13 million investment in a new Great Sankey neighbourhood hub, incorporating primary care and hospital services, as well as a new library, digital library provision and sports and fitness facilities. Expanding leisure and library offers to the town centre, improved Wi-Fi and digital offers in libraries, further investments in Broomfield sporting and fitness reception facilities, improved community sports programmes in Latchford, refurbishment to changing rooms in Woolston. In addition to the 2012, the council also created Culture Warrington, a charitable trust for culture. Since the establishment of that trust, visitors and participation numbers of culture events in Warrington have increased by 105,000 per year since 2012. This has also had a reduced cost to the council in terms of the management fee and increased investment as follows. A new £1 million Cabinet of Curiosity exhibition has opened in the museum, attracting 30,000 new visitors in its first year. Improvements to bar and catering facilities at Park Hall and Pyramid. Planned investment by Culture Warrington. Development of a gym centre, family heritage and ancestor centre in partnership with the Heritage Lottery Fund. Refurbishment of the Pyramid Arts Centre to enhance its offer and an arts conference venue. Improvements to Wi-Fi and box office Park Hall and Pyramid to improve online booking for customers. During this, both organisations have successfully won contracts to deliver leisure, wellbeing and culture services for health, national governing bodies and businesses, resulting in the creation of 55 new jobs in the town. I hope everyone agrees with me that what a bold and brave decision we took. Not done yet. The bold and what we took for our residents. If we had instead listened to the opposition, staff, leisure and library services would have been lost with these savage cuts in the last 5 years from government imposed on this council.
Councillor Sheed, do you have a supplementary question?
No supplementary.
Question 7. Councillor Bennett for Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Bennett, for this question. It's regard to what this administration has done to improve quality of life for people in Fairfield and Howley. Mr. Mayor, Fairfield and Howley, neighbourhood area working. Fairfield and Howley has a Tier 1 Community Action Meeting chaired by an elected member. Meetings are held every 2 months and they produce a ward action plan that addresses local emerging priorities and issues. Local Area Fund. The Central Area Board allocates £60,000 per annum in small grants each year, £50 to £5,000, to community groups to develop projects and activities that support the delivery of the area plan and improve the quality of life of the whole community. Fairfield and Howley benefits from a significant proportion of the local area fund. Community Asset Development Fund, CADF. The Council has awarded funding to improve community facilities, including those which are not owned by the Council. Applications are for a maximum of £25,000. Since its inception, Fairfield and Harley have been allocated Lower Street Community House, £15,000, St Elfin's Community Centre, £10,000, Watkins Street Community House, £5,000, Fairfield and Harley Neighbourhood Project, £19,700, Byfields Retirement Village, £13,818. The funding has enabled centres to provide a high-quality environment in which to deliver a wider range of activities. Typical projects have included a kitchen refurbishment to enable training to take place and deliver change for life projects with the community. Alterations have been made to create a community room which is suitable to deliver training and community learning courses delivered by both colleges. In addition, the council has spent...
Leader, can you sum up, please?
I've got about 7 pages. Summing up, I'd like to commend certainly Councillor Higgins and Councillor Carey for the hard work and commitment to doing that.
That's our evidence. Thank you very much. And move on to item 8. Councillor Bennett to Councillor Carter.
Mr. Mayor, can I just make a point of clarification, please?
Wait a minute. We've used our 30 minutes up, my apologies. We'll move on to motion.
I'm surprised I got that in, to be honest.
Motion number 1.
Yes. May I just bring a point of order that needs some clarification? I'm sorry to make life difficult for you on your last full council, but if I may, my point of order is that I believe this council is being asked to do something that it can't actually do. And the reason I say that is the timing is very interesting, because as of 1 minute past midnight this morning, the government ceased to exist. The coalition government ceased. Parliament actually was dissolved. So therefore, the nature of these questions, point number 1, for example, we're talking to the Secretary of State. Well, Secretary of State still exists for the moment, but they have no real powers if you look at the Cabinet book. So this council is being asked to do something that it really can't do. So I'm wondering whether motion 1 might not be better to come back to this council rather than take it and then you can't have it for another 6 months, according to the constitution. It comes back after the general election, so the next full council after the general election, when we see who the Secretary of State for Transport is. And with regard to motion 2, if I may, sir, it says this council calls upon the coalition government. Well, it can't call upon the coalition government because the coalition government no longer exists. So it's being asked to do something that is actually impossible for it to do. And therefore it's
I'll
just...
refer that to my good friend,
if you would,
Solicitor
sir.
for the council.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
I'm advised they were valid at the time and they can be debated.
Oh, okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yes.
Thank you. Right. Motion 1. Councillor Price.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to propose a motion and reserve the right to speak.
Okay. Second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to second the motion and reserve the right to speak.
Okay. Does anyone wish to speak on the motion?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members, for the past 54 years, residents and businesses of our town have benefited from free travel across the Silver Jubilee Bridge. This free passage has directly impacted Warrington and enabled our transport infrastructure to function. Functional infrastructure is at the heart of every growing economy, and consistently Warrington has played its part in growing, creating jobs, generating wealth, and this has resulted in our borough being an historic contributor to the national exchequer and an engine of growth to the benefit of all. However, with the planned introduction of tolling on both the new Mersey crossing and the Silver Jubilee crossing, this government is willing to cripple our transport system, gamble with our proven economic success, and impose an unfair tax on residents and businesses in our town. Now, in these times of austerity, the coalition government has frequently reminded us that we are all in this together. However, As the new £1.5 billion A14 to Cambridge has its tolls scrapped, and the River Severn crossing has its tolls reduced, and the South East consistently receives more than 5 times what the North West does per head in government transport funding, it is quite clear that we are not all in this together. Instead, this planned toll of £2 per passage will unfairly tax our residents and businesses and divert thousands of vehicles per day into an already heavily congested Warrington. Furthermore, businesses, the University of Chester, our NHS Trust, and most recently, both Penketh and Great Sankey Parish Council have called for this to be scrapped. So members, please, I urge you to support our residents, our businesses, our NHS Trust and our economy by voting for this motion to scrap the planned tolls on both Mersey crossings. Thank you.
Councillor Dewar, second.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm absolutely in support of everything that Councillor Price has just said. It is a given that extra congestion will be created by the new bridge and the tolls on both of the bridges. It's a very good point that he makes in mentioning the old Silver Jubilee Bridge, which has been paid for and will be tolled. And in fact, it will be closed for a while whilst the bridge is actually being constructed. The points I would like to make, not to reiterate anything that Councillor Price has said in seconding this motion, I'm at the forefront of having to deal with what we will face when the tolls come on and the bridge is built. We've been involved in a consultation exercise in the last few weeks, and it appears that they were suggesting that they could increase the tolls at £2 each way without consulting anybody. And we have been very vociferous in making the point that all highway authorities adjacent to the bridge should be consulted, all local authorities, Network Rail, the Highways Agency, all should be consulted when there is a view to change those tolls. So we've made that point very strongly. The other problem we have heard about is that to save cost, all of the tolling is going to be based on open road tolling. In other words, no toll gates. You register your car, it's all vehicle recognition, vehicle number plate recognition. You register your car, you go over the bridge, the money is taken automatically out of your account, and you can do that by mobile phones or whatever. But that completely disenfranchises the older generation who are not IT savvy, as it were, and they could go over the bridge. They have then got, without knowing, and they have then got 24 hours in order to find a pay point and go and pay that toll. If they don't, they get fined. So what we've done is we've said we accept that you want to use open road tolling, but you must at least provide two or three toll routes where people can throw in the money, and that will mean that, in terms of equality, everybody is catered for. So we make these points very strongly, and we've got support from the Warrington and Cheshire LEP, and we've sent those responses in. And the other point I think that Councillor Price has made, we've been very strong, and I think the leader made the point in the question earlier, very strongly campaign about removing the tolls from Warrington residents. That is again totally unfair. You think about where we live in Penketh, we're on the border with Bolton. You can have one house in one authority, one, a matter of feet away in Warrington, one will pay 1 month, and that's totally unfair. So totally support the motion and hope that everyone here would support it as well.
Thank you, Councillor Axel.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Labour Group really is trying to rewrite history with this motion. And for the benefit of relatively new members of the Council, and those who have conveniently forgotten what happened in the past, here are a few facts. The Mersey Gateway project was started by the previous Labour government. It was fully supported by the former Labour administration at our town hall, even though tolls on the new bridge and also on the old bridge were always a requirement of the project. The previous Labour administration seemed to be obsessed with tolls because they were actually considering congestion charging in Warrington so that Warrington residents would have to pay tolls to use our own roads. When I became Executive Board member for Environment Services in the shared administration in May 2006, I was strongly encouraged by my predecessor to continue council support for the Mersey Gateway project. I did put a stop to any idea of road user charging in Warrington, but at this stage the Mersey Gateway project was going ahead. I attended meetings of the Mersey Gateway Steering Group on behalf of Warrington Borough Council, and I must say some very strange things were said there. We had a ridiculous claim that tolls had to be the same as for the Mersey tunnels, because otherwise traffic would divert to the Mersey Gateway. And this illogical statement ignored the current position of a toll-free Silver Jubilee Bridge, so that any toll for the Mersey Gateway would decrease traffic movements across the Mersey at Halton. And in fact, it was easy to show that the proposed tolls were precisely what would be needed for the predicted traffic levels to pay back the capital cost of the bridge. Then, modelling studies showed that the expected traffic flows over the new Mersey Gateway Bridge and the old Silver Jubilee Bridge combined would be significantly less than currently for the Silver Jubilee Bridge alone, and that's with a toll of £1.40. In other words, hundreds of millions of pounds of public money were to be spent in order to achieve less traffic crossing the Mersey at Halton than at present. The latest proposal for tolls of £2 will discourage traffic even more. Warrington Borough Council was promised mitigation for the traffic which would inevitably divert through Warrington because of the tolls at Halton, but this hasn't materialised. The Mersey Gateway crossing is a rotten deal for Warrington. My group started opposing tolls over it back in 2009. It's good to see that the Labour group has come round to our position, even though I suspect it's only because of the coming election. The current motion is for all purposes identical to our motion of a year ago, and so we shall of course support it. We shall not, though, forget Labour's record on tolls. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Bennett, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members will be surprised to hear me say, but I will be supporting this motion because I believe it's the right thing for the people of Warrington. However, the Labour Party position on the issue of tolls is still not clear to me, and I would like Councillor Price to clear it up once and for all if he would. Both Councillor Barr and I have asked the Labour Party parliamentary candidate in Warrington South whether Labour has a national commitment to stopping the road tolls on the Mersey bridges at Runcorn. We have both asked and neither of us have had an answer yet. A simple yes or no would do from Councillor Price, because there's been a deafening silence really from Nick Bent. So when he responds, I would like him to clear that up once and for all if he would please. In the meantime, I will be supporting this motion, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Kennedy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Notwithstanding what I said earlier, I'm going to reiterate. Here's the thing, Mr. Mayor. Getting rid of the tolls is so essential. Why is it that Labour Party candidates for the parliamentary election and shadow ministers of the Labour Party have not once pledged to scrap this toll? And the reason is they know they cannot scrap it because the cost is so high. So, this is very hollow and shallow, this motion. It is it is electioneering at the lowest level, but the residents of Warrington will see through it for what it is. Neither Mr Bent nor any of the former shadow Labour ministers have pledged to scrap this toll. And let's look back in history a little bit, following up from what Councillor Axel said. It's interesting that on the 30th of November in 2004, the Labour-run Warrington Borough Council issued a press release saying that the authority is recommending a bridge with tolls. A Labour council. And a bit later on, in 2006, indeed on the 28th of March, the then Labour government announced a new toll bridge scheme would enter the programme. So they are committed to tolling. And actually, it is this coalition government that has at least eased the burden on some of the residents that will be affected. And actually, it's mainly the Runcorn and Widnes residents. And that's what's happened. And from my personal point of view, I am the only person in this chamber who has lobbied at the highest level, albeit at the moment not successfully, to get this toll scrapped. And it's a fact. I'm the only, and it's a matter of public record, that I'm the only person in this chamber that has lobbied the Prime Minister, and that was in July of this year. And we had quite a big discussion about it. And the reason I did that was that hard-pressed motorists are taxed far enough. And as most people know, I am the motorist's friend, actually, and I think they pay far too much tax. So, I'm very, very disappointed in this motion, and there is absolutely no pledging and no commitment on behalf of the Labour Party to scrap these tolls, and this is just disgraceful electioneering, which will be seen by the residents for what it is. And I should be abstaining on the basis that they don't even think this council can call upon the coalition government, because the coalition government no longer exists. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Cleave.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I support the motion, as I did at Great Sankey Parish Council. Indeed, I seconded it there. It is unfortunate, though, that the Labour group couldn't gather the opinion of the other groups here and go with a cross-party motion that would have given more weight to what's being said in this chamber. It was a decision from the last Labour government, a very right-wing government of Blair and Brand, and that's why the tolls came about. As regards objecting to the tolls, I certainly objected to them. The parish council have always objected to them from the day that they were put in place, and that was through a very comprehensive document put to the inspectorate. I believe, and I think my group believes, that putting tolls on this bridge is to the detriment of the growth, not just of Widnes and Runcorn and Warrington, but also of the North West. As for traffic, I think we can see the increase of traffic already through this town, and that was always going to be an issue with tolling on these bridges. The traffic will certainly increase when Ashley Way is closed for the new road to go in to access the new bridge. However, the Daresbury Expressway is closed now on regular days and is going to close for a substantial period. That is causing absolute mayhem in that area. Now that is going to cause further traffic through this town. I'm really disappointed, though, to find that everything tonight, from what I've heard, is electioneering. It's electioneering to get a certain person brought in as MP in Warrington South. And as I say, cross-party motion, I'm sure, could have found support. I support the motion, but I'm very disappointed in the way it's been brought.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Joyce.
Well, I go further back probably than anybody else in this chamber over this time. And there's certain statements made this evening that I don't take into consideration that what was inherited for this toll started under a Tory government. And that began when we had three options at the local bridge where they go. And I'm understanding, I think it's the government minister at the time, was John Earth, I think his name was. And him and I were still under the viaduct when they were starting to make the changes to the viaduct. That was in the 97, 98 years. And when they applied to the government to try and get the funding to make a bridge which would be toll-free across the Mersey, there were three options. And each one was discounted. And then eventually we finished up, there was no bridge to be whatsoever. Then we went back again and we discussed with the government what we could do about it, and an option was taken. Halfway through the process, it was after about 3 years, it was then introduced from the government to the Department of Transport, and it was under the Labour administration at that particular time, that because the feelings within the transport agencies that tolling was going to be the norm on all new builds throughout the country, including the A14, and they would still on the Severn Bridge went ahead. We tried to ensure, that's the Labour Party in this town, that there was no toll on that road, and we were supporting the Holton position. Holton were absolutely staggered when they were told there was going to be a toll. Having gone down the route of agreeing that there would be a toll, that there would be a bridge at that particular place. The motion here tonight is based on a change in government policy that they have removed the toll when the A14 stop is completed. Anybody uses the A14, and I've used it, and know it's one of the busiest roads in the country. That's virtually a motorway. And I think that our motion tonight is in recognition of change of the situation within the Department of Transport, the experts, and they've now said that there's no toll on the A14. If there's no toll on the A14, there should be no toll on the Holton Bridge. And all my colleagues, my Labour colleagues in Holton, will agree with us. They do not want a toll on the bridge. They would like to have one toll-free, because it does have an effect on their town in particular. Anyhow, as far as I see, there's a bit of hypocrisy here tonight about saying there's electioneering. Well, all I've heard from the opposition parties opposite is electioneering. They agree there should be no tolling. They agree with the motion, yet they're actually condemning us for bringing it forward this evening.
Councillor Bennett.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Don't give me 2 goals, don't chance that.
Councillor Barr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's not evening, isn't it? We all agree, yet we're all in contention. But I'm afraid I'm going to be in contention as well. The Mersey Gateway is undoubtedly a contribution to solving the really serious problems of inadequate north-south crossings across the Mersey and Manchester Canal. And it's not just the one bridge's problem, it's a problem all the way from Manchester to Liverpool that distorts the economy in the area. And the lack of such crossings will have serious effects on the mid-Mersey area's contribution to the Northern Powerhouse. So there's a very strong argument for these crossings not to be tolled, and we support that they should not be tolled. Two minds think alike. Councillor Kennedy has noticed that the candidate for Warrington South from the Labour Party has not got the 2 most important signatures, and the only signatures that matter, on his petition. He hasn't got Ed Balls' signature on it, and he hasn't got Ed Miliband's signature on it. Now, until those 2 signatures appear on it, it is a completely worthless petition. Labour should stand where they believe, and they should give a commitment in their manifesto that they will take tolls off the Mersey. Otherwise, they will take no lessons from the party across the way. There's also another problem with this bridge, and that is the nature of the bridge. It's going to be a beautiful bridge. It's been described as an iconic bridge. A local engineer wrote to me recently, and he said that it's possibly the least cost-effective way of crossing the Mersey and the Ship Canal, and the most expensive way of crossing the Mersey and Ship Canal, known to engineering. Does this come as a surprise? Sadly not. It was Labour's Transport Secretary Andrew Adonis who wasn't satisfied with having commissioned the most expensive railway line in history in HS2, which cost orders of magnitude more than almost any other railway line built anywhere in the world, that he then set about commissioning the most expensive bridge to cross the Mersey. Did he fund it prudentially, as Gordon Brown suggested he should do, through public borrowing? Hell no! Despite Labour telling us, they were not over-borrowed, he resorted to the payday loan of public finance, the private finance initiative, which gives very little incentive to keep costs low or to design a financing bridge which is cheap.
Your microphone's on, Ross.
So, as a result, we've got an extraordinarily expensive bridge which is going to cost the residents of the region very dearly for decades to come, and it's got the potential to increase rather than decrease congestion. Genius. It's like the father of a family telling his wife he's going out to buy a modest family car with a loan from the bank manager who's very prudent and wouldn't let him borrow anything he can't have. And coming back with a Lamborghini, finding out to buy a Wonga. That's Labour economics for you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regards to Councillor Bennett's statement, it probably won't come as much as a surprise that I'm not in regular discussion with the Shadow Chancellor. But what I will be saying is that regardless of whichever government there is after 7th of May, I will continue to tirelessly campaign against these tolls, as will every single person in this group, because it's in the best interest of our town. Now, as for electioneering, I think Councillor Joyce probably already touched on it. I think it is the hypocrisy that you are causing us of electioneering, when it's quite clear that there's a north-south divide when it comes to tolls with this coalition. If you're in the south, if you're in a marginal seat in the south, you get your toll dropped or you get it cancelled, whereas if you're in the north, and actually, as we keep on being told, a powerhouse of the north, it actually doesn't matter. It's largely irrelevant. And so I would urge, the opposition members to actually support this regardless. And I'm glad to hear that some of you are. And Councillor Kennedy, I understand you want to abstain, but please do. I would have urged you to support it anyway. Thank you.
Can I put it to vote, please? All those in favour?
Not to improvise.
Those against? None against? Any abstentions? 2 abstentions. 3 abstentions. Thank you. The motion is carried. Motion 2. Could stand, please. Could Councillor Bode propose the motion? Councillor Bode, second, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to propose this motion on behalf of myself and my colleagues in the Labour group. The Chancellor and the Prime Minister delivered a budget earlier this month, Mr. Mayor, which was steeped in unfairness. We are using this motion to call on the government to review their budget on the grounds that it disproportionately affects the poorest and most vulnerable people in Warrington. Because this was a budget, Mr. Mayor, which made no mention whatsoever of investment in our National Health Service, investment which Warrington desperately needs. We all remember the billboards back in 2010 when the Conservative Party promised they'd cut the deficit, not the NHS. But we have heard not a peep from opposition councillors, nor did we hear from the Conservative Chancellor on why waiting times are drastically up, why Warrington's GP numbers have dropped so dramatically, and why people across this town are struggling to get even the most basic of appointments. The Council's Scrutiny Committee, chaired by my colleague Councillor Higgins, put this question to the CCG recently. And after we were warmly subjected to a party political broadcast from Conservative HQ via their Chief Operating Officer, it became clear, Mr. Mayor, that this government does not have the answers to Warrington's social care problems. A budget delivered by the Chancellor, which makes no mention of investment in our NHS, is not a budget for Warrington. That same budget, Mr. Mayor, pledged to eliminate the deficit by 2019 by way of cuts of more than 30 billion in the first few years of the next government. Achievable, the Chancellor told us, through 12 billion in cuts to the welfare budget. But the Conservative Chancellor is, as we know, not a man of detail, because Warrington people are still waiting for news of exactly where those 12 billion in cuts will fall. And I hope the Conservative Party will do well by us this evening and enlighten us. Here's my theory, and coalition councillors can feel free to tell me I'm wrong. Pensions and pension credits are ring-fenced, according to the Chancellor. So the 12 billion can't be cut from them. Housing allowance, there's roughly 18 billion a year there, but that keeps a roof over the heads of many families in this town, both in and out of work. So cutting that would put enormous pressure on the homelessness provisions provided by this council. So what about the cut to JSA? The Conservative Party are, after all, the party who, in their words, not mine, make work pay. Sadly, for the Chancellor's already struggling mathematics, that's only a small fraction of the welfare budget, 3.6 billion to be exact, so nowhere near the total cuts they pledged to make. There's only one place I can see that's left for the Chancellor to go, and that's in work benefits. To achieve the 12 billion cut he's proposing, he'll have to wield his axe on Warrington's working poor, the section of our population who have suffered enormously already under this government, who have found themselves for the first time since the 1920s earning less at the end of a parliament than they did at the beginning of it, who have seen wages fall and tuition fees trebled. For the first time in my memory, Mr Mayor, this was a budget which has become more famed for what it left out than what it actually included. To refresh the memories of Conservative Party councillors, I've already mentioned the vanishing NHS investment, but let's remind ourselves of what else the Chancellor of the Exchequer missed out of the budget this year. And this is important because this gets to the heart of why it so disproportionately affected people in Warrington. The Chancellor missed out his target to eliminate the deficit by the end of this Parliament because he hasn't eliminated it. He missed out the fact that this government has accrued a larger debt in 5 years than Labour did in 13 years in office, because that inconvenient truth doesn't fit with his narrative. He missed out the tax break he's given to millionaires because he's treated the broad shoulders of those in Basingstoke and Dean better than he ever has the people in Warrington. He missed out over 1 million people using food banks, including those we have here in Warrington and indeed in my own ward. He missed out the 59% rise in working people forced to claim housing benefits under the Conservative Party. He missed out the 1.4 million people working on 0 hours contracts. He missed out the record numbers of people in poverty. And he missed out the 60 billion in cuts still to come before 2020 if a Conservative government is re-elected. This was a budget, Mr Mayor, which set out coldly and clearly where the coalition government's priorities lie. Not with working families in Warrington, because there was nothing in this budget which gave them the support they're looking for. Not with our communities and our villages, but with the millionaires who this evening are basking in Tory tax cuts, while working families in this town struggle to make ends meet. It is a budget, Mr Mayor, that failed Warrington, from a Chancellor who has failed Warrington, in a government which has always failed Warrington.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Marks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I rise to second the motion. Was there the right to speak?
Councillor Marks.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have an amendment, Mayor. I think I trust everyone has a copy of now. If I can speak to that, I will do it. No. It's been well said, and I certainly listened to the lunchtime news, and we heard all about the dissolution of Parliament, and the point has been well made. It would be rather difficult now for the coalition government to review the budget. And even if we were in time, what was being proposed? Were we actually going to write a letter to the Chancellor asking him to review his budget? Might we've got a reply from George Osborne, something like, "Dear Councillor Neil, the government notes that the Labour-controlled Warrington Borough Council has passed a motion asking me to review my budget. I've studied your arguments, I think you're right. I've asked for an emergency debate in the House that I can do as you request. Yours, etc., George." A somewhat unlikely scenario, as I think you'll agree. Now, I know we've had some enlightenment from Councillor Vogel what's not there, but we were rather perplexed to know what measures actually in the budget are going to have such a disproportionate effect on poorer families in the town. I mean, I'm wondering whether the motion was actually written before the Chancellor's speech was delivered. Now, let me give you a few things that were in the budget. Is it perhaps the increase in personal allowance to £10,800 from April 2016 and £11,000 from April 2017, meaning 27.2 million people will benefit and 3.7 million will be lifted out of tax altogether, with a large number of those, of course, being in Warrington? Or perhaps it's the £1.25 billion in new funding over 5 years to treat 110,000 more children with mental health issues, including hundreds in Warrington? Is it the help for motorists with the cancellation of Labour's fuel duty increase for September, so that fuel duty would have been frozen for 5 years, giving a total saving to the typical Warrington motorist of £9 each time they fill up their tank? Is it the help for savers by creating a new savings income allowance so that 95% of Warringtonians can now save completely tax-free? Is it the help for first-time buyers in the town by providing up to £3,000 per deposit? Is it the fact that the lifetime allowance for pension contributions that benefit from tax relief has been reduced from 1.25 million to 1 million, affecting the top 4% of wealthy individuals? Is it the fact that the bank levy has been increased to raise a further 4.4 billion over 5 years? Is it the cracking down on offshore tax evasion and aggressive tax avoidance by serial offenders, which will raise £3.1 billion? Or is it the measures to improve the quality of apprenticeship training by putting employers in control of government funding through a voucher mechanism that's been widely welcomed by employers? This, of course, comes on top of the 2 million new apprentices created since 2010. So perhaps someone from opposite can actually tell me which of these measures, which are all in the budget, has had a disproportionate effect on the poor and vulnerable. Because I suggest to you the poor and vulnerable benefited from those measures. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Barr? Councillor Barr, can you second that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I stand to second the amendment. I'm standing to second the amendment and ask the council to accept it for fairness and balance in this motion. As well as asking the outgoing Chancellor to revise the budget, no longer in his hands, an odd gesture, but one we're prepared to make. It would have been fairer if the party opposite had been prepared to acknowledge that Warrington has been underfunded consistently by governments of all colours, not least during the 13 years of Labour government. Some members who represent wards still have areas in them in the worst 10% of deprived areas in the country. We've represented those areas for decades, including the 13 years of their own government, to be asking why those areas remain so poor in what is overall a pretty prosperous town.
Because they haven't got a netto.
At least we can be proud of the fact. At least we can be proud of the fact that when the Liberal Democrat-led administration in Warrington was here, we helped Golden Gates Housing unlock £105 million.
One speaker.
£105 million of investment into homes and neighbourhoods, which has tided the town through the worst of the recession. Many of those homes are in the most deprived areas of the town, and the investment has helped create dozens of apprenticeships, got hundreds of people into work, and reduced energy bills in our poorest areas. Also, I'm proud that the same Liberal Democrat administration was able to secure the finance necessary to go from the aspiration of having an Orford hub to building and completing. 35 million pounds of funding raised under our administration, with a hub ready for the Queen to open when you took over. Very convenient memories the party opposite has. Liberal Democrats believe in one Warrington with opportunities for all. We believe that actions when running the town speak louder than the empty words of the substantive motion. We will support this motion if you support our amendment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, at least you know where Councillor Marks and Councillor Barth stand, because we've had two Liberal Democrats defending a Tory Chancellor, which quite frankly is outrageous. All that Councillor Marks said is jamming the future. Mr. Osborne has always said that you'll get it in 16, you'll get it in 17, you'll get it in 18. He's never financed anything up front, and he never will do. And as far as I'm concerned, because I remember the Unholy Alliance, which I wouldn't have any part of, they never delivered anything in this town. They had no ambition, they had no drive, they had nothing. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker. They had, the only thing they got rid of was the water coolers in this town. They never delivered anything. And it's always having the plans, it's always having the future, it's always having this, but delivering it is what you have to do. And they had no drive, no ambition, no vision whatsoever to make this town better for the people of Warrington. That's what this Labour administration has done in the last 4 years. We've had drive, we've had ambition, and we've delivered. It's probably been the most difficult 4 years I can ever remember in local government finance. what we've delivered for the people of Warrington and our communities. And they should be ashamed of themselves. Since 2006, when they came to power, to 2011, they did nothing whatsoever in this town, except pretend that we were doing this, pretend we were doing that. And Councillor Mark and Gloucester, then tell me what they delivered.
The two examples I gave, Councillor O'Neill.
You did Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. Can you calm your person down?
One speaker.
Thank you. They never delivered. That Orphan Jubilee Hall started with the top councillors and residents of Orford. It started 15, 16 years ago. Not under them, under us. And we actually put the funding together before they did. And they did not deliver it. We actually delivered it, and we actually delivered it and fight for it. And we've done everything we can in this town, in very different circumstances, by that Tory government. And it is a Tory government supported by the Liberals. And we've delivered in this town despite the government, not because of the government. Just think what we could have done if we had a government that was friendly to us people in the North West and in Warrington. Would have made a real difference. Chris Bowe. Council Bowe.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, thank you. The Labour Group will not be supporting the amendment tabled by Councillor Marks and Councillor Barr. Actually, I'll add in, just to throw my own two penny, the two extra things from Councillor O'Neill's contribution there that the Liberal Democrat Tory administration did deliver. He missed out the traffic lights at Cromwell Avenue in West Warrington. Where they used the wrong data, and he missed out the Ferris wheel. This amendment, Mr. Mayor, is a Lib Dem diversionary tactic if ever there was one. It's simply designed to change the narrative and shift the focus away from the effects of their government on the people of Warrington. They tabled this amendment to distance themselves from the coalition that they formed, from the Chancellor that they keep in post, who continues to hit working people harder and harder. Mr. Mayor, the Labour Group is voting against this amendment.
Thank you. Can I vote on the amendment, please? In favour? Against? This is a substantive motion by Councillor Bowden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My colleague, Councillor Bowden, rightly picked up on the national issues, and I think it'd be remiss of me not to focus on the position this council finds itself in, particularly with regard to funding. And the funding is a really important bit, because that's what's allowing us to deliver services to vulnerable people in this town. I think that's the focus of what this motion is really about. What local authorities have seen is a 40% cut in funding since Mr. Osborne's first budget in 2010. And councils have done a great deal in basically having to deliver funding cuts, trying to protect vital public services at the same time, and essentially with no room for manoeuvre. And it obviously can't continue. Many councils are really on the brink, and many councils are having to face very difficult decisions around the services that they offer, and which are relied upon by some of those vulnerable people in our communities. And really, the discussion has changed nationally. In recent months, Sigoma's work, for example, on protecting vital public services has been published. And what that talks about is what's broken with the local authority funding system. And their focus is really on the difference between the north and the south and other parts of the country. And it's not just Sigoma. Other commissions, independent commissions, are picking up on exactly the same issues. in relation to the finances of local authority. And really, since the Scottish referendum, the devolution genie is out of the bottle. And people are rightly talking about financial devolution for local authorities in this country. And really, you know, knowing that austerity is here for another couple of years, certainly if we don't have a change of government, means that, you know, local authorities are having to look at financial devolution as a way of protecting their communities, protecting residents in their communities, particularly the most vulnerable. And I support that. Unfortunately, the problem we've got with the budget is there's this focus on cities. Other independent commissions have recently reported in relation to non-municipal local authorities. And actually, if you get your head up, you can see that it's non-municipal areas which are actually delivering more in terms of the national economy and growth. The number of private sector jobs delivered in non-municipal authority areas outstrips those in London, for example. So the focus is all in the wrong place, and it's actually too limited and too slow. And unfortunately, local authorities don't have the time to wait. You know, we've delivered our budget, we've discussed at the last council meeting, based around outcomes, the first outcome-based budget. We've tried to be innovative and creative, but the truth is we've still got incredible demand on certain public services. For example, adult social care. And that's another example of where the focus is in the wrong place. The Chancellor talks about protecting NHS funding, all the while not protecting what's going on with adult social care and funding that councils need in order to protect vulnerable people. And all we're doing is shuffling these people around the system. We're not dealing with it in an appropriate, intelligent, intellectual way about how collectively we deliver good outcomes for residents. And on that basis, I think the budget has failed. People in Warrington, it's failed people across the country in terms of getting down to how those services are delivered and giving councils the freedom and the funding in order to make it happen. I look forward to future debates around financial devolution. At the moment, I can see the advantages for somewhere like Warrington, where we hand over more than £75 million of business rates that we collected. You know, there is a different answer. Allow us to keep more of that and reduce the funding that we get directly from government. We can deliver infrastructure in this town with that kind of funding, and that's the debate that we need to have moving forward. So I'm happy to second the motion. I certainly do think the budget has failed, and I look forward to a budget delivered by an Alternatives government sometime soon after May, which gets to the local problem.
Councillor Kennedy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Notwithstanding the comments I made earlier, I'll make a few comments if I may. I have some kind of good news, I think, for Councillor Bowden and Councillor Bowden. That about 6 weeks' time, the people of this country will decide. It's not people in this chamber. Our positions are probably predetermined. We already know probably how we're going to vote. So in 6 weeks' time, after what will be an interesting election campaign, people of this country will have to make a difficult choice. And Councillor Bowden's given one picture, and within the budget presented by Mr. Osborne, there is another picture. And over 6 weeks, lots of comments will be made, and pledges will be made, and there'll be denials and counterclaims and all this sort of stuff. So they will decide. And it's as simple as that. And I believe in democracy, and I'll accept whatever this country decides, and I will do my best to work with whoever's in government, because that's my mentality. I want this country to be successful. But it's interesting about Mr. Osborne's budget, because shortly after he gave it, Mr. Balls was touring the various media outlets, and he was asked about the budget, and this is what he said to the BBC. Shadow Chancellor Ed Balls said he would not reverse any of the measures in Wednesday's budget. Wouldn't reverse any of them. He then went on to say it was good that Mr. Osborne had announced Help for Savers in the budget, and he thought the new Help to Buy ISA was an interesting idea, which would not be scrapped if Labour wins in May. So, you know, Mr Balls actually seems to agree with a lot of what's in here. He might want more, but he's not disagreed with it. Unless, of course, he was being economical with the truth to the BBC. But, you know, I made the comment earlier that we're being asked, this council's being asked to call upon the coalition government and the Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, to review. I don't know how we're going to do that. There isn't a coalition government anymore, and actually, whilst the Chancellor does remain in office until a new government is formed, actually, they can't review the budget, they can't make major decisions. The Cabinet Office Handbook doesn't allow that. So we're being asked, as I said earlier, to vote for something that we can't do. And on that basis, I simply have to abstain because it's an absurdity, which is what's going on. And maybe people forgot when they put the motion in that Parliament would be dissolved this morning. It's easy done. And I accept that. But, you know, there it is. I look forward to seeing what the correspondence that goes to Mr Osborne is, and I'm sure we'll all get copied. So that's my contribution, Mr Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Right, I'm going to break the habit of a lifetime and not only agree with the Labour Party twice in one night, but also agree with Councillor Bowden. I will be supporting this motion as well, and I would like to explain why to all members. This coalition government has inflicted 5 years of savage austerity cuts on the most vulnerable people in Warrington. I have seen for myself the effect their policies have had on people in my ward of Fairfield and Howley, as I'm sure my fellow councillors have seen, or maybe not, who knows. Anyway, it is obvious, Mr Mayor, to me, that the budget delivered by George Osborne this month was yet another nail in the coffin for the ordinary, hard-working people. Sadly, Mr Mayor, I believe that there is no prospect of real change beyond the general election. Ed Miliband has made it clear that a Labour government would not mean the end of austerity. In fact, Ed Miliband and Ed Balls are deliberately vague about their cuts and where they will fall. That doesn't help people who live in my ward, and it doesn't help people all over Warrington. In fact, Mr Mayor, I believe it explains why the Labour Party can only manage to stay neck and neck with the Conservatives in their opinion polls when the country is crying out for change. It is because people have realised that the difference between the two major parties is paper thin. They both have the same austerity agenda. Perhaps Councillor Vaux could tell us where the Labour cuts will fall. As he is a friend of Ed Balls, presumably he will know where Ed Balls would, as he said, wield the axe if he was Shadow Chancellor. So can he tell us or find out for me, please? If this administration are genuine in their calls for the government to review their budget, then, Mr Mayor, I call upon the leadership to practice what they preach. Will Labour review their own council budget on the same basis? Because there is nothing in there which will benefit the people of Fairfield and Howley. Mr Mayor, all that to one side, I will be supporting this motion, but I hope we will go into this election with one thing in mind. Only Tusk will give the people of Warrington South the chance to vote against austerity measures, advocated by all the other parties. Warrington doesn't need 5 more years of the condemned government, Mr Mayor, but we don't need 5 more years of Labour either. Warrington needs a Tusk MP. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll try and summarise and respond to some of the points raised. Councillor Marks, earlier on you listed a number of measures, but you failed singularly to tell us exactly how many people in Warrington would benefit from them. Perhaps you didn't have the figures to hand, but you might like to enlighten me at a later time. Councillor Kennedy, I don't think Ed Balls has said he agrees with George Osborne. I think he picked out 2 issues that were within the budget, which he quoted as, he was quoted as saying they were interesting ideas. That's not quite the same as agreement. Councillor Bennett, can't be bothered with that one. Mr Mayor, my colleague, Councillor Bowden, referred to the 40% cut in funding that this council has had since the coalition took power. And we'll take absolutely no lessons at all from the Lib Dems, who sit there pretending to be devoid of all responsibility for anything that negatively impacts on this town. No matter how much Danny Alexander might protest, these decisions are of your making. This is your Chancellor, you put him there. Every economic bruising, every battering that working people in this town have had has been just as much in the hands of the Lib Dems as it has been at the Conservative Party. The Lib Dems boast of their pride at their party's record in government. So let's hear it. They are, after all, the party who voted for a rise in VAT after campaigning against it. They're the party of tax and benefit changes, which cost working people over £1,000 a year. They're the party who cut the 50p tax rate for the wealthiest. They're the party of tuition fees. We'll abolish them and we'll treble them.
Look who is talking.
They're the party who sold their souls for a handful of seats at the cabinet table. They are, Mr Mayor, they are the party of the bedroom tax. For that was the last gaping hole in the Chancellor's budget. Here he had the opportunity to listen to people and reverse the cruelest and most pernicious of taxes. I know that my colleagues, Councillor Friend, Councillor Roberts, Councillor Mundry, have recently been working to help residents in their respective wards who have been hit by this. One lady in Croft said to me only recently, if they could, this government would tax people for going to the toilet. This budget, Mr Mayor, gave the Chancellor the opportunity to help working families, to help Warrington by jettisoning the bedroom tax once and for all. But like the NHS, like the programme of welfare cuts, like their support for working people, there was silence. Mr Mayor, this was not a budget for Warrington. It was a budget delivered by a party who sit there with all the moral authority of Andy Coulson, bringing down their hammer on Warrington's head again. I agree with Councillor Bennett, we do need to change the direction. Warrington needs a new plan. Mr Mayor, Warrington needs a Labour government.
All those in favour of the motion? All those against? Abstentions? The motion is carried. I declare the meeting closed. We will now move on to the extraordinary meeting.